What's up, owner investor? In this video, we're going to cover what problem Costco is solving for its customers. So, first thing I want you to do is to download the case docs from the page that this video is on. So it should be a PDF called Costco Case Docs _1. So I want you to spend the next 10 to 15 minutes just reading through this PDF document. I've already compiled all the kind of key pieces of information that you need to know to answer that question. You can ignore stuff like this, like the disclaimer section. Whoops, didn't mean to highlight that. And just kind of the goal here is to just focus on the key questions. And so I've broken it up a little bit more to make it easier for you into 4 questions that really it should be like these 3 are kind of sub questions of this main question, which is what problem is Costco solving, right? So just pause the video, spend 10 to 15 minutes going through the PDF document and answering these questions in a few sentences or less, and try to keep your answer the same thing that you would say to a 5th grader, right? Just like really simple language and just getting like directly to the point, no using jargon, and don't say exactly what it says in the annual report. Try to kind of put it into your own words. That's really where the essence of understanding really anything is, right? To be able to make it your own and say things in your own words. Okay. And then once you've done that, come back to the video and then I'll review everything. Okay. Now that you've gone through that, I've gone through the same documents myself, highlighted some of the stuff that I thought was important, and then I'll kind of show you how I would answer those key questions in really simple words. Okay, let's go through this. So pretty much everything we need to know is kind of in this first couple paragraphs in the annual report. Costco is not every company is like this, where they just tell you straight up in very direct, simple language, what they do and what their business is about. But Costco does, right? It's one of those few businesses that does this, right? So the key here is like low prices. We offer our members low prices on a limited selection of nationally branded and private label products, wide range of categories, and the goal is to produce high sales volumes and rapid inventory turnover. And the key here is also the operating efficiencies, right? With volume purchasing, efficient distribution, reduced handling, because if you go to a Costco, everything is in those big pallets. They don't have to have employees kind of picking and putting stuff on shelves, and it's insane how much efficiency and costs that takes out of the equation that can then be passed on through lower prices. This is another thing that's really powerful is, where does it say this? We often sell our inventory before we are required to pay for it. So typically the way that retail works is the vendors will give their retailers that they sell to or distributors 30 days to actually pay cash for the inventory. And most retailers take more than 30 days on average to sell whatever they buy from their distributors or from the manufacturers, but Costco usually sells it within those 30 days. So this is a concept we'll talk about later. It's called the cash conversion cycle, and it's a really powerful part about what makes Costco such a great business, but that's not what we're worried about right now. What we really care about right now is what problem Costco is solving, right? So the problem is that there's these excess costs that are borne by consumers through higher prices, and Costco is figuring out creative ways to take costs out of the equation and just keep passing them on to customers through lower price. Okay, let's keep going here. And the key here is to be like Sherlock Holmes, right? Like I mentioned in the last video, where you're not trying to read and memorize everything. You're just picking up little clues here and there to answer those key questions, right? So some of the clues that I'm talking about here are really specific words like, volume purchasing, reduced handling, no frills, self-service warehouse, operate profitably at significantly lower gross margins than any other retailers, um, directly from the manufacturers, large shipments, quickly ship these goods to warehouses. This process creates freight volume and handling efficiencies, lowering costs. Um, yeah, these little things that really matter and that add up in the long run. That's what we're looking for, right? We're not trying to read the whole thing. Anyway, um, so the other thing I noticed here is the limited stock keeping units per warehouse, significantly lower than other broadline retailers. They didn't mention this, but a Walmart would typically have over 100,000 different stock keeping units, right? So that leads to all sorts of efficiencies in terms of the people that have to manage those vendor relationships and that have to make sure that they're the category leader in terms of price and quality, right, for the products. So it's unbelievable how much efficiencies are gained from such a simple yet profound idea of taking 100,000 stock keeping units and reducing it to 4,000. And it's not necessarily decreasing the selection in terms of the different product categories, but it's reducing the selection within each category, right? So when you go to a Costco, instead of having like 10 different brands of toothpaste, it's 2 different brands, right? And it's typically the leading branded manufacturer, and then it's Costco's Kirkland, which is their private label brand. So that just reduces the amount of selection that customers have within each category, because Costco is basically saying, hey, instead of you having to have to come in and spend all this time and brain power selecting within those 10 different categories of toothpaste, our buyers, our merchandising people have done that for you, right? So we found the best bang for your buck, and we're going to show you the 2 best options, and all you have to do is pick between those 2 options. This is another huge thing, is the return policy. So Costco is extremely customer friendly, right? So again, getting back to that same question of like, what problem is Costco solving, right? Like most retailers are not, they're trying to extract as much value as they can from their customers. Costco's doing the exact opposite. They're just giving their customers as much value and continually lowering price as the business scales and gets even more efficient. And they've been doing it consistently for 40 years. This is another huge thing. I mean, they are in so many different product categories. This is nuts. I mean, I only started looking at Costco very recently over the last couple months, and I had no idea that, and I grew up on Costco, but I never kind of put 2 and 2 together of realizing that they're in so many different categories, like gas, pharmaceutical, optical, like glasses, hearing aids, tire installation. They also sell cars. They're one of the actual biggest sellers of cars in the entire country. And I didn't know that going in, and I've actually spent a decent amount of time looking at car dealerships. So they keep kind of a low profile. They don't advertise and kind of brag about what they do, which another thing I love about the business. All right, we'll keep going here. So this is a really powerful stat here. Renewal member rates of 93% in the US and Canada and 90% worldwide. That is, I mean, that's incredible. Like that's what like the best software businesses in the world will have, those kinds of renewal rates, right? And this is an annual renewal rate. Most companies, they'll report a monthly renewal rate, or they'll report like a monthly churn, and they'll say, hey, our monthly renewal rate is 99%. So that's actually not as great. Or they'll say let's use a different example, because a 99% monthly renewal rate is a 1% churn per month, which is 12% churn per year, which ends up being like an 88% renewal rate for the year, right? For Costco, it's 90% for the year. And like if you look at like AT&T or Verizon, they'll have like a 1.5 to 2% monthly churn rate, which means they lose 1.5 to 2% of their customers every month. So that comes out to like a 15, what is that, like 1.5 times, just do some quick math here, 1.5% to 2%, this times 12. So that's 18% annual churn. And then at 2%, it would be 24% annual churn. 2% times, 2% times 12, right? So even like some of the businesses with the stickiest customers, like, how often do you switch, who provides your internet or cable? Not that much, right? Even those businesses have an annual retention rate of like 76 to 82%, right? And Costco's out here, putting up a 93% renewal in US and Canada and then 90% worldwide. This is like the most powerful metric. So like when I read this, it's like someone came up and just slapped me over the face because this is a really powerful metric. And it's the most compelling piece of evidence that they have a delighted customer base, right? Like going back to the previous video where we were talking about the best businesses have really loyal customers that are delighted and they keep coming back. And that also allows the business not to spend any money on advertising. And it also allows the business to sell more and more kind of adjacent product categories to the same customers. Really, really powerful feedback loops here. But staying, kind of focused on that question of like, what problem is the business solving? I should add this other question on there, which is like, how good of a job are they doing? Like, what problem are they solving? But also, how well are they? How good are they at solving that problem, right? So this metric suggests that Costco is really good at solving that problem, because you have so many options, right? You obviously have other membership warehouse clubs like Sam's Club and BJ's Wholesale, but you also have other retailers like Walmart, Target, Kroger, Whole Foods. You also have, Amazon. Your local, Aldi. They don't have much of a presence in the U.S. yet, but they're growing. There are so many retailers that sell similar products, and so having this 93% retention rate in such a highly competitive industry like retail is really powerful. And they're doing it at scale, right? They have over 100 million members, and it's consistently been growing every year. And the other thing is, how are they doing it? It's through this membership model, right? Typically, retailers you don't pay a membership to shop at Walmart. Anyone can shop at Walmart. But the way that Costco has solved for it is this membership model where they just have this like consistent markup, and so they're not like kind of playing games with like charging different prices on different months, having promotions on certain categories, and then gouging you on others. They just have like a consistent markup, and then they just make their money on the membership fees. And yeah, we'll learn a little bit more about the membership fees as we go through this document here. This is another huge aspect of Costco. They're not just their customers that love them, but their employees also love them, right? 90% of the employees have been with us for at least 1 year. I should have included this in the documents, but Costco has one of the best employee retention rates in the industry. I think it's like significantly better than your average retailer. I think the average Costco employees, if they stick around for over a year, they tend to stick around for like 10 more years on average, whereas your average retailer, it's churning through. The average retail employee, like in stores, sticks around for like probably less than 1 year, right? So I think Costco has like somewhere like 5 to 10 times better retention, which means they don't have to spend as much time retraining employees, like paying severance, and all of those things just lead to more and more efficiencies, more and more costs being taken out, and they're able to better solve that problem of higher prices for their customers, right? This is another thing, like their starting wage is $17.50 an hour, right? That's way better than the national average. All right, we'll keep going here. So the other thing here is, okay, so now that we've read what the company says about the business. Now we want to see actual data, right? So the company has also provided us with good data here, like the retention rates, but we want to verify with like third parties, and we want to do our own research, and so we never want to jump to conclusions, right? So investing is like you're always in this state of a working hypothesis, and then you're trying to like kill that hypothesis. And then when you can't kill the hypothesis, then maybe you're at a conclusion, and then you're just following these names for, you hold them for years, and you just pick up little nuggets here and there. And sometimes you get like a new piece of evidence that just forces you to like rethink and shift your perspective, right? So the working hypothesis here, like once I've read through, this annual report excerpt here, now it's like, okay, so it sounds like what the management team of Costco is saying is, hey, we have the lowest prices, right? If I really had to like boil everything down here, that it would be in that one sentence, right? We have Costco has the lowest prices. So now the question is, okay, is that true, right? Because that's not a conclusion. That's what the management team is telling you. Now it's up to us to kind of go and figure out and validate that, right? And so that's why I've also included some of these blog posts, but it's not just someone else's opinion, right? This guy actually went out and did the work, right? So that's the other aspect of being an investor is a retail investor, particularly because we don't have the resources to go hire some consultant and pay them $1 million to go do like this extensive research study or surveys. But we can leverage other people's work that they upload for free on the internet, right? So, the words here are helpful and they provide some color, right? That he's not going crazy on impulse buys. These are things I regularly use. Okay, like that's helpful. That's helpful context. Jim Senegal often claims that customers will quickly recover, the cost of their membership. Okay, that's cool. But what I'm really looking at is, okay, boom, this part right here, right? Like this guy actually went out and did a pretty extensive price comparison, and he found significant savings, right? So instead of me having to go out and do this, I can leverage this person's work, right? So that's really powerful. So this is like another little interesting tidbit. So now it's like, okay, now I'm starting to build answers to that hypothesis. Okay, Costco has the lowest price. There's supporting evidence that we're building here, right? Okay, another aspect of this is the advertising, right? This guy says in 2018, these are hard numbers that, he's pulled from Business Insider, that, theoretically Business Insider has pulled from company filings. Advertisers typically spend 5% of revenue on advertising. 6.1 billion for Comcast, 4.5 billion for Amazon, 3.1 billion for Disney, and then Costco doesn't spend any money on ads, right? And Costco is one of the world's biggest retailers. I think they have like over $200 billion in revenue. So that's huge. That's so impressive that they're able to generate such a high number on sales, but spend nothing on ads. So we'll keep going here, right? So this is a cultural thing, right? Like Jim Senegal thinks that advertising is evil because it costs money, and like everything that raises costs is going to have to be borne out by the consumer through higher prices, right? So this is a really this is like a really nice little anecdotal signal that shows you the culture of Costco, right? Like what they are obsessed about is providing the lowest price to customers, right? Not like most businesses aren't like that. Most businesses are like trying to extract as much value from their customers, right? And this is another thing is like celebrities shop at Costco. It's not like this thing where there's like a social, like a negative perception of shopping at Costco. Like everyone from like Kris Jenner, I think like Michelle Obama shops at Costco. Like wealthy people shop at Costco because sometimes Costco will have like a really great deal on a really nice diamond ring, or they do have like these higher ticket items where you can get a really great bargain. And so that's a really cool thing is like Costco has kind of a much more broader demographic than I think like Price Club would have kind of a more of a negative connotation, like, oh, like you're, like skimping, or like, like you're, I don't know how to, like, you're like super, like you're really cheap, trying to save, like penny pinch. But Costco, doesn't have that same kind of association with it. That's more of a qualitative thing. I know I don't have like a ton of numbers here to kind of prove that out. That's just kind of more something I've kind of teased out through my research on Costco, which it's a lot more than these 12 pages. But yeah, let's keep going. So this is another really great pricing survey done by this consulting firm, Coriolis Research. So they did. I mean, this is from 2002, so it's a little dated. But yeah, like they studied like 50 different items, and they found that Costco, on average is like 69% cheaper, right? That's insane. Like that's a ridiculous amount of savings, particularly considering the fact that, so many people are living like paycheck to paycheck these days, particularly in the era of inflation that we live in, right? So that's, again, we're leveraging other people's work here. Another aspect of Costco's strategy here is the treasure hunt, right? Our customers don't drive 15 miles to save, on a jar of peanut butter, right? They come for the treasure hunt. It's like I read somewhere that it's like a day out for most people, and that was certainly the case for me, when I was growing up. But I don't want to impose like, my family's experience at Costco and assume that everyone is like that, right? So we want to make sure that we're balancing kind of the inside perspective, but also the outside perspective, right? And that's where things like, reading that through like Reddit and seeing that this is a very deliberate part of the customer strategy or the business strategy that Costco has put out, and kind of confirming that, and not just using like our own biased and limited perspective, but also being broader and making sure that this is how most people perceive Costco, that this is how most people think about their Costco visit. Because, we're living in a time now where, you can just sit on your couch and order stuff on Amazon, right? And so that's a real threat potentially to the problem that Costco is solving, because yeah, Costco offers lower prices, but they're also creating this. There's also this other aspect of Costco, which is, you got to carve out like, a couple hours on a weekend to go and do it. It's almost like a day out, right? And maybe some people don't want to do that, right? Maybe they'd rather spend their time doing something else other than, getting like free samples and at Costco, because it's never a short trip at Costco, right? It's always like a 2-3 hour, adventure. Especially if you have kids and, the kids are like running around, so that's another aspect of the Costco strategy of like, what problem are they solving, is like, is this treasure hunt aspect, is this going to continue to be something that people care about in the future, right? That's a really important part about thinking through this fundamental part about Costco, which is what problem are they solving? Okay, the treasure hunt, yeah, like you might find like a boat, yeah, or like Japanese A5 Wagyu beef, like you're never going to find this at like Walmart or Target, right? And then this is the other aspect. It's just like one piece of evidence, I know, so don't want to extrapolate too much here, but it's this idea of like skimping on product quality, right? Like it's so easy for a retailer to just like cut the portion sizes. I think I saw this like John Oliver clip where he was posting like news clips about shrinkflation, about how all these different businesses are just like reducing the quantity within each like product. Costco doesn't do that, right? It goes back again to this cultural thing of like, that thing that Jim Senegal said, right? Like he thinks that advertising is evil, right? Because it costs money, anything that's going to raise prices, right? So it's this cultural thing, this trust that they've built with the customer, this bond over the last 40 years that they refuse to compromise, right? So now that we've kind of gone through that, here's kind of how I think about answering those key questions, right? So what problem is Costco solving for its customers? Prices are too damn high at retail, right? That's the essence of it. And it's that, most retailers are inefficient and they pass on these inefficiencies, these higher costs to customers through higher product prices, right? And most retailers also skimp on product quality because what they care about is generating profits, right? And that's not to say Costco doesn't care about that, but that's just profits are kind of the way that Costco thinks about it. It's like a natural byproduct of solving that customer problem and doing it really well. Whereas for most people, most businesses, it's like, okay, how do I generate profits? And then they kind of like back solve into like the customer experience, and they're like, okay, like what are like, okay, do we have to be the lowest possible price? Like, can we reduce the quantity? Can we increase prices here? Like, how do we manage the business, right? Like, how do we bump up the margins a little bit here? Gouge the customers on this product, and then get customers to come in by selling this other thing at a low cost. But we know that they're going to buy this other thing, and they're going to we're going to earn like a 20% margin on that, and like a 5% margin on this, right? Costco doesn't really play that game. I mean, they do have loss leaders like the rotisserie chicken, but they don't. They don't charge. They don't mark up products more than I think like 13 or 14 or 15%. So they have a cap on how much they can mark up the products. So how does Costco solve this problem? So they have an efficient system of sourcing and selling the products, right? So they have a limited selection, no frills, self-service warehouse, reduced handling, and they pass on these efficiencies through lower prices. Most businesses would just kind of take those efficiencies and keep it for themselves, right? They would just earn a nice fat margin. And there's a unique culture at Costco where, they would rather make money on the volume instead, right? And their goal is to offer way more value than price to the customer, right? Like that membership fee could probably be like 10 times higher than it is today, and it would still be like a big savings for most customers, right? So all of that leads to high customer retention, right? 90% plus renewal rates, high employee retention, low employee turnover. And the key idea here is that it's not like any one of these things. It's all of these things like working together, right? There's this amazing positive feedback loop, or as Jeff Bezos would say, a flywheel, where doing any one of these things makes it easier to do all those other things really well, right? So you have high employee retention. That means you're more efficient. You can charge lower prices, which means you have higher customer retention, and then that leads to even more employee retention because you can afford to pay your employees really well because you have really productive warehouses. And it's just this like self-reinforcing thing. It's about doing like it's like doing a million things really well, and then they all like add up. And then you keep doing that for many, many years, and it's this amazing self-reinforcing positive feedback loop. So who are Costco's customers? It's mostly, they're not selling to governments really. It's a consumer-facing business, right? It's mostly people and small business owners. And does Costco target a specific type of person, business or government? Demographics, psychographics. Yeah, I mean, I think it skews. I didn't include this in the document, but it skews a little bit higher because people have to be able to afford to buy in bulk, right? Like you can contrast Costco to like the dollar stores, where dollar stores, their customers are kind of living much closer to like paycheck to paycheck on tighter budgets, and so they're paying higher unit prices, but they don't have as much money per week for the grocery bill, and so they shop in lower quantities, right? So Costco customers tend to be higher income that can afford to buy in bulk. They can afford to buy like a month or like 2 months or 3 months worth of toilet paper. But it's also people that enjoy a bargain and enjoy the treasure hunt shopping experience. And the beauty of Costco, yeah, like I mentioned this before, it's that their demographic is actually, it's not just high income people. It is actually pretty broad, but I think a lot of the customers tend to be higher income. But the beauty of Costco is that middle class people shop there, and so do like really wealthy people, right? And like dignitaries and like diplomats and celebrities. That they shop at Costco, and they're proud of the fact that they shop at Costco, right? And they post about it on social media, which means that Costco doesn't have to spend any money on ads. Their customers are so delighted, they do it for them, right? That goes back to that idea in that previous video of delighted customers are the best salesmen, right? There'll be like news segments on Costco. People post on on Instagram or on Facebook or on Reddit, right? So all these things, they're really powerful aspects of the business. I think I ran a little bit longer here than I would have ideally liked. So again, I hope you're playing this at 2 times speed. But yeah, that's kind of the bottom line is problem that Costco's solving is high prices, right? And the way they're solving it is they're just running a more efficient system, a more efficient business, and they're able to offer lower prices to customers. So yeah, post any comments, questions, random thoughts. Love to have a discussion on this in the comment section. But yeah, let's keep going. I'll see you in the next video.